How did the Battle of Berlin exactly end? Well, in the building behind me, because in this building German General Helmuth Weidling signed the unconditional surrender of the Reich's capital. In this video we're gonna discuss exactly how the Battle of Berlin came to an end. By the 29th of April, the government area of Berlin would soon fall in the hands of the Soviets. A hodgepodge of SS troops, Wehrmacht units and Volssturm men held on to the quarter. Inside the Führerbunker, Hitler married his girlfriend Eva Braun by midnight. Then Hitler dictated his last will and testimony. Hitler's last act as head of state was breaking up the position of Führer into different positions. Goebbels became Reich's Chancellor, Admiral Karl Dönitz became Reich's President, and Martin Bormann became Party Minister. Despite Hitler wanting Goebbels to leave Berlin, Goebbels refused out of loyalty. Hitler and his wife took their lives on the 30th of April in the afternoon. With Hitler now dead, Goebbels as Reichschancellor remained in the bunker as a new government decided on a course of action. At that moment, Red Army troops were only several hundreds of meters away from the bunker. The military situation was beyond hopeless. The bodies of Hitler and his wife were put in a shell crater and doused in petrol before setting alight as Goebbels and Bormann gave their final salutes. What followed was a confusing period of 24 hours or so in which Goebbels and his wife decided what to do. He seemed to have said to SS officer Heinz Linge, "I have also decided to bring my life to an end, but it is a very difficult moment." Others in the bunker, among which Bormann, were determined to try to escape. Bormann also made an attempt to negotiate with the Soviets. On the night of the 30th of April to the 1st of May, Goebbels sent General Krebs, Hitler's last chief of general staff, to the headquarters of General Vasily Chuikov, commander of the Soviet 8th Guards Army, with instructions to negotiate a surrender in Berlin and a safe conduct out of the bunker for all those still there. Krebs traveled south through the devastated streets of Berlin toward the headquarters of Chuikov, which controlled much of the southern part of the city. Negotiations for a ceasefire had dragged on since the evening of the 30th of April, but eventually Chuikov approved safe passage for Krebs to reach his headquarters located in a building on Schulenburgring near the western side of Tempelhof Airfield. It is the building you see right here. Chuikov left a detailed account of his negotiations with Krebs, a Russian speaker, in his later memoir. And from this we can try to deduce Goebbels' intentions. Krebs arrived at Chuikov's command post at 3:50 a.m. on the 1st of May and stayed for some 12 hours. He carried with him several documents, including a message from Goebbels, which read as follows. In accordance with the testament of the departed Führer, we empower General Krebs as follows. We inform the leader of the Soviet people that today, at 15 hours 30 minutes, the Führer voluntarily quitted his life. On the basis of his legal right, the Führer in his testament he left behind him transmitted all power to Dönitz, to myself and Bormann. I am empowered by Bormann to establish contact with the leader of the Soviet people. This contact is essential for peace talks between the powers which have borne the heaviest losses. Goebbels. It is curious why Goebbels felt the need to state that he was authorized by Bormann, especially since in the following talks Krebs consistently emphasized that Goebbels was effectively acting in Hitler's stead. Through Krebs, Goebbels requested that the Soviets allowed the formation of a new German government to negotiate a more favorable peace agreement between the two nations. However, this request was unrealistic. The Soviets had no reason to make any concessions to the remnants of the German leadership, and on his superior orders, Chuikov insisted on nothing short of an unconditional surrender. Soviet Marshal Chuikov made known that if Goebbels and Bormann do not agree, unconditional surrender will blast Berlin into ruins. At around noon on May 1st, Krebs departed Chuikov's headquarters to return to the bunker and consult with Goebbels. Whether Goebbels still imagined the future for himself as the head of a German government in talks with the Soviets, or if he had already resolved to end his own life and that of his family, even in the unlikely event that the Soviets agreed to negotiate, remains a mystery. In the afternoon of the 1st of May, Goebbels dispatched a telegram to Dönitz announcing Hitler's death and informing him of his new position. Goebbels and his wife Magda had intended to take their own lives the day before, but at the last moment they could not go through with it. Magda was emotionally devastated, yet both remained convinced that they and their 6 children should die rather than live in the world they believed was coming. The secretaries who were still inside the bunker begged them to let the children live and even offered to take care of them. However, the Goebbelses believed that they were protecting their children by ending their lives. Around 6 p.m., SS Dr. Ludwig Stumpfegger first gave the children a sedative and then cyanide. Shortly after this, Goebbels and Magda went to the Chancellery Garden where they took cyanide capsules. Goebbels may have also shot himself. Their adjutant attempted to burn their bodies, but there wasn't enough petrol, and doing so out in the open may have been too risky. Later that night, at about 11 p.m., the remaining people in the bunker attempted to escape. They divided into smaller groups and left at different times. They fled the Reich's Chancellery area through underground tunnels beneath the government district. A few escapees succeeded, but most were captured by advancing Soviet troops. Martin Bormann was killed near Lehrte station in the early hours of the 2nd of May while trying to escape along the railway tracks. At 8:30 in the morning of the 2nd of May, German commander of Berlin, Helmuth Weidling, formally surrendered the city without conditions.
Это генерал от артиллерии Вейдлинг, командовавший обороной Берлина. 2 мая он подписал приказ о капитуляции и сдался в плен со своим штабом. Бесславная встреча.
Adolf Hitler was dead, and the Battle of Berlin had come to an end. A Red Army soldier wrote what he had seen. Decrepit, scruffy, often completely exhausted German soldiers and officers are laying their guns down everywhere in the streets and squares and giving themselves up in droves as prisoner to our troops. The Germans are flying white flags on many houses. Right at this minute, I see 2 Hitler officers walking with lowered banners and no guns from the Tiergarten Park toward the Brandenburg Gate, near which there lies a pile of guns, and crowds of German soldiers and officers are standing. Even so, the Third Reich had not completely collapsed yet. Several more chaotic days followed before victory in Europe and the return of peace were officially declared. With Berlin in Soviet hands, the war did continue for another week. The first mass German unconditional surrender occurred on May 4th, 1945, but it was a partial surrender. It happened on the Timmeloberg on the Lüneburg Heath, where German General von Führerbunker partially unconditionally surrendered to British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. On May 7th, 1945, the German High Command, in the person of General Alfred Jodl, signed the unconditional surrender of all German forces east and west at Reims in northeastern France. On May 8th, the definitive surrender was signed in Berlin. The actual signing was delayed until after midnight on May 9th, Central European time. Until the end of the war, the northwest of Germany, Ostfriesland, Schleswig-Holstein, weren't taken by the Allies. The Nazi-run government, under leadership of Karl Dönitz, functioned till May 23rd. On that day, the Allies arrested the leaders of the last Nazi government, and with that, the Third Reich came to its final end. The last Germans would surrender in September, a few days after the Japanese surrender. These Germans were stationed on the Norwegian island of Svalbard, but that is a story for another time. Now about Martin Bormann. There are theories that he actually escaped and ended up in Paraguay, South America. Paraguay did play an interesting role in World War II. Click here to find out.